G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Joey Coleman, who is the Chief Experience Composer at Design Symphony and based in Minneapolis in the US. So thanks for your time, Joey.
Oh, Mick, thanks so much. And thanks to everybody for listening in. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely, so am I. And the topic today is about increasing retention and engagement of employees, which all small businesses are always challenged with from my conversations with many of them over the years. So I've got no doubt they'll get a lot of value out of this chat. So to kick things off, tell our audience a bit about yourself and your experience on this topic, mate.
Well, Mick, I've spent the last 20 years teaching companies around the world how to keep their customers and how to keep their employees. And the way we do that is by focusing primarily on the first 100 days of the relationship. If you get the first 100 days of the employee experience right, you have a long-term, engaged, participatory employee. So it's about what are you doing at the beginning to effectively onboard them, get them up to speed, get them contributing to your company.
Awesome. So it's so essentially it's a process as much as anything that small businesses can follow and should follow.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I believe there are 8 phases to the employee experience. And if you take your time to pay attention to each of those phases and to hold your employees' hands while they walk through each of those phases, you end up with an engaged, retained employee. If you're willing, I'll give you a quick overview of the 8 phases. We'll go super fast, and then we can dive deep into whichever ones you want to talk about most, Mick.
Sounds good.
Perfect. So the first phase is the assess phase. This is when a prospective employee is trying to decide whether or not they want to come work for you. They're looking at your website. They're checking your job listing, your advertisements. They're going on LinkedIn to see who else they know that might work at your company. They're talking to friends to see if they know anyone that works at your company. Basically, they're assessing whether or not they want to join your team. In the same instance, we're assessing them as they go through our application process, our interview process, as we're trying to figure out if this person's going to be a good fit. We then come to phase 2, the accept phase. In the accept phase, we accept as the employer that this is the candidate we want. We extend a job offer, and if we're lucky, that desired candidate accepts our job offer. We then go to phase 3, the affirm phase. Now, many listeners are probably familiar with the concept of buyer's remorse. Allow me to introduce you to a concept that may not be as familiar, new hire's remorse. This is when a newly hired employee begins to doubt the decision they just made to come work for you. What we want to do is affirm their choice by letting them know that they made the right decision. We're excited to have them as part of the team, and we're looking forward to them starting officially. We then come to phase 4, the activate phase. This is the first official day on the job. Now, they accepted the job offer some time ago, but this is when they show up ready to work. On the activate phase, we want to remember the immortal words of country music legend Bonnie Raitt, when she said, let's give them something to talk about. We want to give a remarkable experience on that first day. So when they go home that night to their mom, their dad, their friend, their spouse, their children, whoever it is that they're closest to, and that loved one says to them, how was your first day? They've got a great answer to that question that we strategically and intentionally provided. We then come to phase 5, the acclimate phase. The acclimate phase starts on the second day on the job and lasts for weeks or even months as this new hire gets acclimated to your way of doing business. They're learning about the role, the relationships within the company, the requirements of the job, and their various responsibilities. If we do a good job, we get to take them to the next level, the next phase, the accomplish phase. This is when the employee achieves the goal they had when they originally decided to apply for a job way back when. What are you doing to track their progress towards those goals, to celebrate the milestones along the way? And when they accomplish their desired goal, how are we celebrating with them? We then come to phase 7, the adopt phase. This is when the employee becomes loyal to you and only you. They're committed. They're bought in. They're not answering job ads. They're not taking a call from a recruiter or a headhunter. They are committed. And if, and only if, we get them through all 7 of these previous phases, do we have the right, the privilege to welcome them to phase 8, the advocate phase, where they become a raving fan singing our praises far and wide. They're writing reviews on employment sites. They're giving us testimonials. Anytime we're looking to hire someone new, they're recruiting from everyone they know to try to get the best possible candidate to come to our offices to join our team. So those are the 8 phases. And if you do it right, by the time you get to the 8th phase, you've got an employee that is entirely bought in, is a contributing member of your team, and is a zealous advocate for you in the marketplace.
Yeah, wow, I want to work at that place.
Exactly. And that's the funny thing, Mick. If we pay attention to each step in this process, we quickly realize that most companies don't.
Exactly.
Most companies don't pay attention to even half of these phases, let alone all 8.
Yeah, I can, just the way you explained it, I can just sort of visualize virtually how powerful that can be. Just with the assess phase, because I guess working with many businesses over many years, that's probably one, and equally all the 8 phases, mind you, but the assess phase is probably one which is overlooked straight up front, which obviously if you don't go through that assess phase as you describe, you're probably up against it straight away. So maybe can you just sort of dive deep a little bit into that first phase?
Absolutely. Well, when I was writing my book, Never Lose an Employee Again, Mick, I look at companies small, medium, and large, online and offline, product and service, domestic and international. I actually have case studies from all 7 continents, including Australia, in the book. And the majority of the case studies are from smaller companies, companies that range anywhere from 5 to 50 employees. And the reason for that is because if you don't get your new hires right when you're growing, you get a much bigger problem. If I've got 1,000 employees and I hire one bad employee, yeah, that's not good for my business, but it's probably not going to cripple my business. If I've got 5 employees and I hire one bad employee, 20% of my business is struggling immediately before we even consider about the ripple effect they have on the rest of the team. So when we think about the assess phase, that first step, the question becomes, are you showing yourself as being available to hire top talent? If I were to go to your website today, is there a page where you talk about what it's like to work at your organization, where you show pictures of your employees, where they get a feeling for, oh, there's real human beings that work there. This is what the culture is like. This is what the jobs are like. Even if you're not looking to hire anyone today, is there an ability for a candidate that hears about your organization, hears about your company, to come to your website and say, this looks like an interesting place? Now, if you are hiring, the question becomes, what does that job description, what does that advertisement look like? Does it preview what the experience of working for you is going to feel like? Right? There's a lot of different ways to do this when we think creatively about our advertisements and about our job listings. The problem is most companies start their listing by saying, hey, the name of our company is Acme Corp. This is what we do, and you better have these skills before you apply. And we detail out a bullet list of what degree they have to have, how many years of experience they have to have, what they need to be willing to accept, doom. And we list out all the things that we as the employer want from them, instead of talking about what we're going to provide to them. Why aren't we sharing what it's like to work here? Why are we being cagey about what the salary is or what the benefits are? Why are we talking about what they need to be instead of what they're going to experience when they show up for the first day?
Yeah. And I guess from your experience, have you sort of ascertained typically why they don't sort of do what you've just sort of described?
Well, I think there's 2 reasons really, Mick. Number one, most small businesses, when they're looking to hire an additional employee, if they are going to advertise it or put a job listing online, they go to other similar job listings from other companies and kind of do a copy and paste. They change a couple words to make it sound like them, but that's about it. The problem is when we're copying from other companies, we want to make sure we're copying the best things they do, not the worst things they do. So we're starting in the hole by looking to other businesses as an example of how to do our job listings. I think the second reason is most businesses, especially smaller businesses in that 5 to 30 zone, are thinking more about how is this person going to help me produce? How is this person going to deliver on the skills I need in the business? Instead of thinking about how is this person going to become part of our ecosystem, part of our environment? How are they going to get along with their colleagues and their coworkers? What are the things that are going to be appealing to them? We live in an era right now where there are more jobs available than there are workers to fill them in most parts of the world. And so the challenge is we've got to show why we're a great place to work, just as much as the employee has to show why they're the great person to join our team. So we need to be thinking about how can we put that forward and how can we preview the experience of what it is going to be like if they get a job offer and decide to come join our team.
Yeah, and I guess the question of if they get a job offer, it's more likely they do. You hear stories of just people getting poached, so to speak, on LinkedIn, and they say, "Well, I wasn't actually looking," but I guess that's where they sort of take a look inside another business and go, "Well, that's made me curious," and it goes from there.
Absolutely. Mick, one of the things I think that the best leaders are doing is they're always on the lookout for talent. I will tell you right now, I've got a small business myself, right? I've got less than a dozen employees. In fact, I've got some full-time employees. I've got some part-time employees. The full-time employees, there's only one other than me, right? And then I've got some part-time workers that do various projects and things for me. But I'm always looking for my next hire. When I meet someone amazing, when I meet someone remarkable, I strike up a conversation. I get to know them a little bit. I stay in touch with them. And after I've seen them perform at a high level consistently, I let them know that if they're ever looking for a job, I hope they call me first. I let them know that if they're ever unhappy with their current employer, I hope they'll reach out to me to talk about it because I'd be interested in having them join my team. Even if I'm not hiring right now, I let people know that there might be a future for them with me. That's something everyone listening could start doing tomorrow. If you're at the restaurant and you meet a waiter or a waitress, and they seem to be really on top of things, they're on the ball, they've got the order right, they're friendly, they're fabulous, let them know when you give them a tip or you write them a little note at the end or say to them, hey, by the way, if you ever think that you want to do something different other than wait tables, I'd love to talk to you about what it might be like to work at my company. Come work for me. Come work with me. Those conversations, you never know what great talent you're going to be able to find and what folks might be sitting there going, I've been thinking about quitting this job and this person just appeared at the right time. I've also had people that have come back to me months later, weeks later, years later and say, hey, is that offer still open to talk about what it might be like to work for you? And if you've identified the right person, I bet you can find a position in your organization for someone that's that talented.
Yeah, it's an awesome tip, and it's one I advocate for business owners because, typically businesses have a hit list of maybe new clients or new customers, but rarely a hit list of potential employees. So, certainly understand where you're coming from. It's a great tip, and as you say, small business owners can start that tomorrow. So that's a ripper. I guess as far as retention, which is what your 8-step process is all about, principally, you hear of, I guess, studies about the costs of not having a good retention rate. Can you just quickly talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's front end cost and then there's long term cost. So let's talk about the front end cost, the hard dollar cost. The research shows that if an employee quits and you've got to hire someone to fill their place, on average, it's going to cost you somewhere between 100% and 300% of their annual salary. So let's say you've got someone on your team that's making $40,000. If they quit, it's going to cost you $40,000 to $120,000 to replace them. Now, some of that is in hard dollar cost advertising. Some of it is in soft dollar cost. How long is it going to take them to get up to speed before they're producing? How much business are you going to lose in the time period while this position is empty in your business? What are those costs? It factors it all in. So there are real hard dollar costs, but there are also soft dollar costs, Mick. So let's pretend you've got a company of 5 people. Mick and I work together. There's 3 others. And all of a sudden, one day, Mick quits. So what am I going to do as the owner? Well, I'm going to go to Sally and Joanna, who also work on the team. And I'm going to say, hey, Mick quit. We're sorry to see him go. This is going to be a problem. Sally, Joanna, do the work Mick was doing while we hurry and find some. No, wait a second. We're not going to try to hurry and find someone because that's how we got into this in the first place. We hired Mick too quickly. We're going to take our sweet time to hire the right person this time, someone that will stay for the long term. Now, we're not going to be able, Sally and Joanna, to give you a pay raise. We're not going to be able to give you a bump in title. We just need you to take one for the team and help out while we're trying to find someone new. So what happens that night? Well, first of all, Sally and Joanna don't feel too taken care of. They don't feel too appreciated. They just got told that their workload's going to increase and they're not going to get a raise or they're not going to get a new title. They also go home to their significant other, their spouse, their partner, their family, and they start to think, well, what did Mick know that I don't know? He just started working here and he left that quickly. Maybe I should be polishing my resume. Maybe I should be looking for a new job. Is this company really the kind of company I want to stay at long term if we can't keep people? So it starts to crush your morale as well. So you've got hard cost and soft cost when employees quit.
Want specific advice to help you get your business through its #1 growth challenge? Book a free 20-minute growth chat with me, Troy, the founder of Grow a Small Business. I'll recommend some resources which will help you grow your business with ease so you can live the lifestyle you've signed up for. Go to growasmallbusiness.com and click on Growth Chat.
Yeah, it's a scary number when you put it in that way. And I guess, like you say, it's the soft costs and the opportunity cost that comes with it. So, yeah, I guess it just makes so much sense purely from that perspective for business owners to actually invest time, money and energy into the employee experience as far as from hiring and the induction process. But it's more the onboarding process. It's the bit, isn't it? Because I think many businesses hire, they induct, they might, 1 or 2 days, and then it's sort of over to you, Joe or Sally. So can you just sort of unpack briefly that onboarding process, which obviously relates to the 8 phases, but are there any sort of really key bits small business owners need to nail in that part of the process?
Well, a couple of things I'd ask anybody who's listening who's a business owner to consider. Number 1, how many days do you spend onboarding? Just how many days? If we look at the research globally, more than 50% of organizations spend less than 2 days onboarding their new employees. So we want them to stay for weeks or months or years, but we're only willing to spend 2 days teaching them the ropes. What usually happens is a new employee comes in and we fire hose them with information. We try to tell them everything they need to know. We're showing them all the things, or what often happens in small businesses, we just throw them into the deep end of the pool and hope they can swim. Hey, we don't really have a lot of time to train you up. So if you could just hop on this cash register, we're struggling here. We just need you to jump in and do your best. What we need to do is slow the process down. I know this is hard. As a fellow small business owner, I get it. You want this new hire to be up to speed. You want them to be productive. You want them to be self-sufficient. But in the beginning, you've got to spend time with them. When I hired my assistant, we spent 2 hours every day for a month working together on a call, talking about, well, she works remotely. So we're on a Zoom call and I'm showing her how I do things with my calendar. I'm showing her how I do things with email. I'm giving her little assignments to test what she's learning, but I'm not fire hosing all of it at once. I'm dripping it slowly like an irrigation system so that we can grow the kind of employee we want. The other thing I'd ask folks to consider is who's in charge of teaching this new person the ropes? Did you actually work with that member of your team to talk about what they should do? Years ago, I worked for a company in the HVAC repair business, repairing air conditioners and heaters. And lots of times when they had a new employee start, they'd say, well, we're going to send you out on the truck with Frank. You're just going to go out there with Frank, and Frank will teach you everything you need to know. Well, does Frank know everything we need to know? Is Frank the best representative of the company, or is Frank the person that's willing to take a ride along? In most organizations, the person who's willing to take the ride along gets the ride along. And we never have a conversation about what are we actually teaching them? What are our values? What's our philosophy of business? What are the practical and tactical things we need to do? So give some thought as to what you're teaching them, and give some thought as to who's doing the teaching. Solve both of those things, and you'll probably have a much happier new employee.
Yeah, I love it. I think managers, well, a lot of managers go into that role because they're technically good at sales or whatever, but not shown how to manage, right? So hence they're set up to fail in that role themselves.
Absolutely. Most managers are promoted because they were good at the task, not because they're good at people.
Yep, good technician.
And it's also the case that the research shows that the average manager globally gets their first training in being a manager at age 43. I don't know about you, Mick. I've met a lot of managers that are younger than 43. That means they've had, on average, no training in how to be a manager. And that's before we even think about this world we live in today, where a lot of team members might be operating remotely. Have we learned to manage remotely? Probably haven't even learned that. In fact, the business owner probably has never taken a class or a training on how to manage a team remotely, and they're the one that's employing all of these remote workers. There's opportunities for growth and learning for all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just takes a little bit of time and effort, but it's well worth it. And based on those stats you mentioned earlier, it's a no-brainer in many respects. So just to close off, Joey, because we could talk for a lot longer. What's at least one thing you'd recommend a small business owner does from listening to our chat?
So the thing I want to help you with in terms of your retention is the folks you already have in your employ, the people who are already on your team. Because while we want to do right by new people joining your team, if we don't do right by your veterans, the people that are already with you, we're in trouble. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd love you to pull out your phone, turn on the camera, and switch it over to video, and then put it on to selfie mode. So you're going to shoot a selfie video. And here's a rough script you can use. We'll pretend that Mick works for me. I hold up the cell phone, I shoot the little video, and it goes something like this. Hey, Mick, I was listening to this great podcast the other day, and the guest on the podcast asked us to think of our favorite employee, our favorite team member. And I immediately thought of you. You know, you're a fantastic person to work with. You're a great member of the team. You show up every day with a spring in your step and a smile on your face. Whenever we're in a tough situation, when we're coming up on a deadline, you're always willing to roll up your sleeves and help out. You're a team player. You're a bright ray of sunshine. We're just lucky to have you. And I know I should say that more often than I do, but I wanted you to know that from the heart, we value having you on this team. We couldn't do it without you. And then hit send. Text it to them. Send it right away. Don't watch the video. You're going to want to watch the video. See how you look. See how you sound. Don't do that because you'll never send the video. Just take your first take and text it and send it off to that employee. Here's what the research shows is going to happen. Number one, the average employee, when they receive a video on their text, on their phone, a video via text, will watch that video within 90 seconds of receipt. Number two, when you've gotten a text from your employer with that type of message of gratitude and appreciation, the typical employee will watch it multiple times. They will share it with other family members. For many, it will be the first digital proof that they matter, proof that their boss values them, Proof that the owner of the company knows they exist and thinks they're doing a good job and is happy for them. When you're shooting the video, just identify 2 or 3 things that you like about this employee. That's it. Doesn't have to be a long video, doesn't have to be a scripted video. Send the video. And here's the great thing. You can send that same video to every employee you have. Just customize it for them. Call them by name, say the things you value about them, and send the video off. It's a single thing you can do tomorrow that will dramatically change how your team feel about you as their employer.
Brilliant. Love it. I haven't actually heard it in that context before, but that's so good. So thanks for that, mate. Thanks for the time. It's been a great chat, and there's no doubt a lot our listeners will get out of that. And maybe we might do a part 2 one day.
I love it. Thanks, Mick. And thanks to everybody who listened in. I hope you got a couple ideas of things you can do to create better experiences for your employees. If you're looking for more, there are over 50 case studies in my book, Never Lose an Employee Again, from companies all around the world. And as I said earlier, companies in Australia, companies that are your size, companies that are in your industry. It's chock full of ideas. Check it out. I think you'll find some good stuff in there as well.
Absolutely. We'll put that a link to that in the show notes, mate. So thanks again.
Cheers. Thanks, Mick.
Want to help other small business owners improve their business? There's one quick thing you can do, which is jump over to iTunes and leave a review. Or if you don't have an account, follow us on Spotify.